What's going on, everybody? It's your boy, the man, the myth, the legend, RizGod, RizGod, baby, bringing you guys the second episode of the one and only RizPod, where we talk everything about sports and debate and have a great time. I'm still working on it. Today, we're going to be doing something very controversial, something that just released today in terms of updated votes. That's the NBA All-Star game. But before we talk about who's an All-Star and all that fun stuff, I want to introduce the two guests that I have on today. First, we're going to bring a reoccurring guest from episode 1, my boy, Chris. Chris, what's up?
It's good, Riz. How you doing, brother?
Doing good. You ready to go get this show going again?
I definitely am.
All right, great. So my third guest, or my second guest, I should say, the third person joining the pod, is a newbie to the pod, one of my good friends, Jonathan, a.k.a. JT. What's going on?
What's going on, Rizzo? How you doing, bro? What's up, Chris?
I'm doing good. Glad to have both of you guys on. I'm glad to have you guys here to talk about some NBA All-Stars, where we're going to make some controversial picks or maybe some pretty obvious ones. I'm really excited to see what we have. Granted, there's so much talent in the NBA today. I think with so many players, just to pick 24 is going to be a task in itself. And the fact that we have 3 different minds speaking what they think is the right answer is going to be really fun. So I think we should really get this show on the road. Obviously, we're divided into 2 conferences, the East and the West, with 3 people. So yeah, let's get it started. In terms of the NBA East starters, that's what we're going to start with. I'll go first. So starting off with the guards for me, I think the guards is such a loaded position in the NBA. But luckily, when it comes from the East, I think the East is something that's a little bit more obvious. So coming in the first guard spot for me is Mr. 70-piece chicken McNuggets himself, Donovan Mitchell. I think it's really no surprise here. I think Donovan Mitchell is probably the best guard in the East right now. Granted, what he's doing in terms of performance and putting on a show, I mean, he just scored 71 points the other day. He scored a 71-point, 11 assist, 8 rebound game. I mean, before we even go into that game, just what's happening in the NBA as a whole right now is absolutely insane. It's so much scoring going on. So the fact that Luka put up a 60-point triple-double, then you have all these other people putting up 50 pieces, and then Donovan Mitchell goes out to throw 71 up is insane. Obviously, if you look at his stats, they're monster. 29 points, 4 rebounds, 5 assists, shooting 34% from the 3. With the Cavs being in the 4th seed, I think it's no surprise that Donovan Mitchell is one of my all-stars. In terms of the second guard, I think this is where we're going to have maybe the difference of opinions. For me, I got to go with Jaylen Brown. Jaylen Brown was somebody that was number 10 on Chris's list on the top 10 NBA players. Go check it out if you haven't already. I have to put him as a starter. I mean, to start off, he's averaging 27 points, 7 rebounds, 3 assists, being the second option on his team. So the fact that a second option on the best team in the league right now, with the Celtics being 26-12, making the All-Star team, just shows how great Jaylen Brown is. If Jaylen Brown wasn't on the Celtics, or if he didn't have Jason Tatum, I'm convinced he'd be a 30-point scorer, no doubt about it. Jaylen Brown is just putting up astronomical numbers, shooting 36% from the 3. He's shooting around 78% from the free throw line, and he's just constantly going out there throwing 30 balls as the second option. So I think between Jaylen Brown and someone I have on my bench in terms of the guard, I just think that Jaylen Brown is putting up a more impressive season than the person that I have on my bench. And in terms of the forwards, this is going to be tough because there's 4 great front court people, and only 3 of them can make it. And the 3 that I have is somebody that I gave high praise, obviously, in the first episode of the pod, Jason Tatum, one of the MVP frontrunners. He's killing it this season. I don't really think he needs an introduction. The guy's putting up astronomical numbers, averaging 31 points, 8 rebounds, 4 assists. He's tied with Luka Doncic for the most 30-point games this season. That might have actually just changed now with Luka scoring all these points. He's on the team, or he's on the best team in the NBA. I think it's without a doubt. The next person that I have is Mr. Greek Freak himself, Giannis Antetokounmpo. I mean, just look at the stretch that he's having. Right now, it's Thursday, January 5th, and the last 3 games that Giannis is having just put up a career high. Just had a 30-20-10 triple-double. He had 2 40-20 games in a row. Like, his last 5-game span has been insane. And the fact that he possibly might not even be a starter based on voting. I don't know. Is going to be insane. I think Giannis is 100% lock. And then the final person that I have is none other easy money sniper, Kevin Durant. I think Kevin Durant is a lock for the All-Star game. He might be a captain based on the voting. I wouldn't be mad if he was the All-Star captain regardless because the season he's putting up. The Nets were just on a 12-game winning streak. And who was the reason behind that winning streak? Kevin fucking Durant. He's averaging 30 points, 7 rebounds, 6 assists. Me and Chris were talking about it in the first episode. Kevin Durant is shooting and scoring at such an efficient rate for a small forward. It's insane. 57% from the field, 37% from three, nearly 90% from the free throw line. He's almost having a 60-40-90 season for a small forward. That's something that needs to be notated and something to me that's an automatic lock for a starter.
Absolutely.
Any thoughts on my list? What you guys think in terms of the East starters? Anything that you're like, you're not really too much into it, or what's your guys' thoughts?
I mean, I'll be honest. I was surprised you had Jalen as a starter and Jason Tatum as a starter. I thought you could have gone either or, just picked one of them though. But to have them both, I was very shocked about. I'll be honest.
I'm in line with Chris there. I'm definitely shocked that you had Jalen up there for sure, especially given the fact that I don't know in terms of popularity and the fan vote aspect if he's going to make it that far. Definitely all-star deserving nonetheless, but the popularity aspect is the one that really surprises me.
And I think just to go a little more into that before we go over to Chris for his 5 is I think Jaylen Brown plays for the Celtics, who have a very loyal fan base. And realistically, if you look at the competition that he has against him, there really is probably only one other guard that you can argue that probably deserves a spot over him. I just think with the East and the East being so competitive, with the league being so competitive now, and the numbers that Jaylen Brown's putting up as a second option, I just don't see how he doesn't deserve to be a starter, which is why I put him in there. But with that being said, Chris, I'll hand it over to you. I can't wait to see what you got cooking up for us.
For my starting 5 for the All-Star game for the East starters, I have Donovan Mitchell as one of my backcourts. I mean, the guy had a 70-piece the other night. A couple more assists, I think it was, and he would have had a triple-double. Like, he's putting up great numbers. He has played almost all the games for the Cavs. He showed out. There's nothing more deserving for an all-star than just what he's been doing. Once you have a big moment like that in the season, before the all-star break, you deserve an all-star spot. That's just me. Just the way you do it, Donovan Mitchell, you deserve to be a starter. For his backcourt mate, it's going to be very shocking, but I have Kyrie Irving. Kyrie's stretch right now in that 12-game win streak, he's been putting up crazy numbers. Being a sidekick, I mean, you can't even say they're sidekicks to each other. I think it's literally like Batman and Batman between him and KD. Like, literally, either one of them could go out for 30 or both of them at the same time. They're just that good of scorers. And Kyrie's just been exciting. Like, if I've been watching Kyrie, and there was times in Cleveland, I'm just like, wow, I really enjoy watching Kyrie. And there's other times where it's just like, Jesus Christ, I can't watch Kyrie Irving no more. He's doing too much. But now he's just back to playing ball, and he's just being Kyrie Irving, flashy. The putback dunk he had against the Spurs, that was crazy. Just putting up crazy numbers. So I think him having that 12-game stretch, pushing the Nets back up to what I think they're like the 3rd or 2nd seed right now in the East, I think just that deserves an all-star spot. At least a spot. If not starting, at least a spot. Now for my front court, a guy I left off my list, Joel Embiid. He's, I'm a traditional guy, so I like a power forward, small forward, center. So I picked Joel. Obviously, he's been putting up great numbers. Rizzo had, held him in high regards up there in the first episode. So I had to put him up there. I mean, he's played 28 games. It's not too little of a sample, but he's put up numbers in those 28 games, 33 points, 9 rebounds, 4 assists. I mean, this guy's just putting up numbers, playing great for a team, holding Philly up. I mean, Philly's really up and down this year. As long as Embiid plays, though, he keeps them there. So definitely an all-star to me. For the power forward, I have Giannis. I mean, there's literally no other person. Like, Giannis has to be in the all-star game, in my opinion. He's one of those guys that like now, that if Giannis not in the all-star game, there's something wrong. He's just a household name to me, and just has to be in the All-Star game. There's no doubt about it. How every year people put LeBron in there, Steph, KD, Giannis has to be one of those guys now. Just the last 5 games, just putting up monstrous numbers. I can't believe his career high was 55. I was going to mention that when you brought him up. I was like 55 points. I could have sworn I've seen Giannis throw up 60 before. Where did this career high come from? I mean, the guy scores, rebounds. I mean, 12 rebounds a game is insane. You know what I mean? Like, and he's not a center. Like, and he's just the way he moves, you just think like, wow, 12 rebounds a game. That's crazy. 5 assists to add on top of that. So I would give him that spot. And then the last spot I'd give to KD because, I mean, there's a lot. KD just given 37 games, and he's put up ridiculous numbers. Rizzo went on to the 60-40-50 club. The stretches where he didn't have Kyrie, he was just balling. Kyrie comes back. He just fits. Hey, Kyrie, just come right fit in this machine that I'm working with, and let's keep balling. 12-game win streak. I mean, it's ridiculous. If it's not for KD, the Nets really don't make it that far in this win streak because KD is just an automatic bucket, and he's the guy who pushes that team and motivates everybody on that Nets team.
No, yeah, I want to give a couple of shout outs. I think Kyrie's a great shout. I don't want to say too much, but Kyrie's stretch in this Nets win streak has honestly solidified himself as going back into that upper echelon of great, not only point guards, but great NBA players. That putback dunk was electric. I'm so there with you when you say Kyrie Irving is fun to watch again. He was never boring because obviously he had the step back, he had the handles, he had the finish. Like Kyrie Irving was always special, but he's playing this brand of basketball that I think is just like, wow, like I got to tune in to Brooklyn to see what Kyrie's going to do tonight. He's just an auto bucket. Embiid, I'm glad that you turned around on Embiid. Not having him on your top 10 list before was pretty insane, but obviously we kind of went back and forth on that. Seeing him start is great to see. I was a little bit on the edge of whether I wanted him starting. Not seeing Jason Tatum or Jaylen Brown is kind of shocking to me. I mean, like I said, Jason Tatum has been him this season, so not seeing him as an all-star starter is a little bit shocking, but nonetheless, it's a pretty solid list.
I just think that between all the guys I put, Jaylen Brown can play the forward or the guard, and I just don't. I mean, he's been having a great season. Don't get me wrong, but when I'm looking at the game, and I'm just saying, do I want to see Kyrie or do I want to see Jaylen Brown? I'm going with Kyrie Irving. Do I want to see Donovan or Jaylen? I'm going with Donovan. And then the front court, there's no debate. KD, Giannis, Joel. I'd rather see all of them before I see Jaylen Brown. Jason Tatum, on the other hand, it was difficult. At the same time, I'm either switching Giannis or KD. Am I really going to switch Giannis or KD right now for Jason Tatum in an All-Star game? No.
I think for me, definitely the biggest surprise has to be the Kyrie Irving selection as a starter. Obviously, the numbers he's putting up are phenomenal. But from my point of view, the thing that really holds me back from at least putting Kyrie into the starter selection will probably be the controversy earlier in the season. And in addition to that, the offseason. Yeah, the Nets are doing as great as they are currently. But I feel like because of their 12-game win streak, a lot of people have forgotten the narrative beforehand. Granted that, you could also make the counter argument that because they're on this win streak, everything from that time is pretty much put behind them now and they're moving forward. But I do feel like that would at least play a factor, in my opinion, for whether Kyrie should at least be a starter.
Fair enough. Fair enough. So, with that being said, 2 starting groups down. JT, the floor is yours.
Gotcha. So, starting off with my guards, right off the bat, in alignment with both of you, I have Donovan Mitchell. He's putting up a career high 29 points per game, as well as a career high in his shooting splits as well. He's shooting a career high 40% from the field, 40% for the first time ever in his career from 3, as well as 87% from the line. He's averaging a solid 5 assists too. And given that Garland is the main facilitator on that team, it's nice to see that Garland now has that second facilitator option with him. And overall, before the season started, a lot of people were putting into debate whether Donovan was really worth it for the Cavs, if the Cavs sold too much for him. But now you put the case that that trade was one of those rare instances in the league where it could really be a win-win, right? And in addition to that, Donovan's also a top 10 MVP thus far. And even though they've been relatively healthy, I do feel like it's worth mentioning that some of the Cavs' core pieces have been in and out at different times throughout the season. So for them to even have that fourth seed is impressive as it is. Next, moving on to my second guard spot, which does differentiate from both of yours. I have to put Trey there, even though I know the Hawks have fallen off, right? They're currently the 9th seed, even with DeJounte, but the fact that he's still putting up a near double double at 27 points a game and nearly 10 assists, and the fact that I would consider him one of the more popular players in the league, I do feel that the fan vote aspect is really what's going to drive him into that starting spot. Personally speaking, I do see the case for other guys to have the starter spot over him, but that's just my opinion. I'm only one person. I can't control the entire fan base. But that's solely the reason, just off his name brand and his popularity up to this point. For my front court, I first right off the bat, I have Giannis. I do believe he should be the captain as well, even though I know first votes came back, and I believe KD's leading that charge, given his seniority in the league, you could say. But I do believe when their careers are all said and done, Giannis is definitely going to be a more popular player than Kevin Durant, just off the fact that he has the likability factor and he has the stats to back himself up. He's surprisingly averaging a career high in points at nearly 33 a game, as well as 12 rebounds per game, which is insane for someone who's classified as a power forward. He's currently a top 3 MVP thus far, and one thing that hasn't been mentioned yet has to be the fact that the Bucks are currently the second seed in the East, in large part pretty much because of Giannis. Middleton and Holiday have been in and out of the lineup this season, primarily Middleton coming off his injury. And yeah, Giannis is just a Greek freak. There's a reason he has that label. So moving on to my other forward, I have Kevin Durant. He's averaging nearly 30 points, nearly 7 rebounds, 5 assists for a 6'10" power forward, which is impressive as it is, especially for those assist numbers. One thing that's been very underrated is the fact that Kevin Durant is actually shooting career highs for both field goal and free throw percentage. And as you both have mentioned previously, the bounce back that Brooklyn has been because of him. He's currently has Brooklyn as the 3rd seed in the East. And, they were supposed to break up after that offseason drama, yet they've been able to bounce back. And it's pretty much due to Kevin Durant's shoulders. And he's done a great job, regardless of the scrutiny he used to face during his time with the Golden State Warriors. I would say that he's done a great job dealing with drama in his go around with Brooklyn, as opposed to maybe back then. And then lastly, for my final forward, I have Jason Tatum. 31 points a game, 8 rebounds a game, as well as 4 assists, career high in points per game, rebounds per game, as well as he's shooting a career high 47.4% from the field, which is technically tied with his rookie year, although given that it was his rookie year, he wasn't considered the number one option for the team. He's also currently top 3 in MVP voting, and then the Celtics are number 1 in the East following the finals run. So he should definitely get his flowers.
No, I actually kind of have a lot to say. I think we obviously see pretty eye to eye, almost all 3 of us, in terms of Donovan Mitchell, Giannis, KD. Tatum is there, Embiid is there. Trae Young is very interesting. I think we all have different guard spots. I mean, you got Jaylen Brown, you got Trae Young, you have Kyrie Irving. I think they're all, obviously deserving. They're all big players in the league. It might be a little controversial. I'm not going to spoil too much, but Trae is an interesting pick. I honestly think Trae's having a pretty down year. I think when I was looking at Trae Young, when I look at the Hawks as a whole, you just pick up DeJounte Murray, who's an all-star in itself, most of the time, right? You have someone there with Trae Young in the backcourt doing what you expect to be great things, but the Hawks have been struggling. Trae Young is shooting his worst three-point percentage of his career, shooting at a 30% clip. And to me, it's I know he's not Steph Curry light, but essentially that's kind of his play style. pass first guard that can shoot from deep, that can take it into the hole, that draws contact, get to the line. Very Steph Curry-esque. And I mean, Trae Young was just in the Eastern Conference Finals a couple seasons back. Like Trae Young is that guy. I just think so far this season, he's still putting up great numbers. I mean, 27 points, almost 10 assists. Like it's no flack. I just look at the East as a whole, and I just think that Trae Young isn't comparable compared to most of the East players this season. But that's just my opinion. But yeah, I'm pretty down on Trae Young, to be honest.
Just to piggyback on what you said, Rizzo. Basically, yeah, I think the reason I don't see Trae as a starter, even though his numbers might be there, 27 and 9, he's not giving enough flair with those 27 and 9s, in my opinion. Before, you would see Trae daily on Sports Center, like Trae Young just got 35 points off 6 threes, and look at this amazing thing he did here. And now it's just like Trae Young has 27 tonight, 9 assists, a couple boards, and that's it. Like, I think for an all-star bid for Trae, I think he just needs more of just flair there. His team is, like Rizzo's also saying, his team isn't as up to performance as what we expected them to be, especially with the DeJounte Murray trade. We really thought that was going to push Trae, push the Hawks to a whole different level. I saw them 4th seed at least, as high, maybe 5th. So, to see them down there is just, a little disappointing.
And I think just to piggyback a little bit off that, I think what makes the Trae Young pick interesting in the fact that we all differ is that I feel like Trae Young's almost putting up like empty stats in a sense. Like I look at Jaylen Brown, I think Jaylen Brown's been making his team better. I look at Kyrie, I think Kyrie's been making his team look better. A couple of East guards that we're probably going to mention maybe down the line, I think are making their team better. And I just think Trae Young is just, I don't know. I'm pretty down on Trae Young this year, to be honest. I feel like he's taken a step down as a superstar, but that's just my take.
I hear both of you, and when making this list, I definitely had those thoughts in mind. But with that being said, another really big factor is that the Hawks have had their defensive anchor and Clint Capella out for a decent amount of time now, and Trae Young's never been necessarily the guy known for his defense, but to have an anchor of Capella's stature down for a sizable amount of time does definitely affect their team as a whole. So I wouldn't be surprised to necessarily see them start making a little bit of a push once he comes back healthy.
No, and I agree with that. And so far, that's a lot of similar opinions so far for our top 5 for our East. A little bit of differences, but to go on to the bench, I'm going to start off. We're going to kind of go on blocks of sharing 2-2-2 as we go down. And my first 2 coming off the bench is someone that we've already mentioned from both sides. I got to start off with Joel Embiid. I think Joel Embiid, like I mentioned in the first podcast, is a top 6 player in this league. He's been killing it, a top 6 MVP candidate. The numbers that he's putting up, absolutely insane. Chris, you touched up upon it, but almost 34 points a game, 10 rebounds. He's passing the ball a lot more with these 5 assists. He's rebounding a lot less this season, which I still don't understand why that's the reasoning. I mean, I know you got James Harden. I know you have Tobias Harris. I know you have PJ Tucker who stays down there, but you're 7-2, man, and you play in the post. Grab some fucking boards. But the numbers that Joel Embiid is putting up is insane. I mean, he almost had a 60-point quadruple double with blocks. If you don't see that stat line and don't think Joel Embiid deserves to be an all-star, you're on drugs. I think it's without a question. And then to follow up on that for the second reserve is someone brought up who I was very close to putting in my starting lineup. It's Kyrie Irving. I think Kyrie Irving's season that he's having this season as a number 2, very similar to Jaylen Brown. I mean, dude's putting up 26 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists. Kyrie's doing a lot more than just score the ball. We're usually known for Kyrie putting 30 points up and really not doing much else. But the numbers that Kyrie's putting up as a second option has been pretty insane. And Chris, you said it too. I do agree with it. I think Kevin Durant has done a great job with this Brooklyn Nets team to make it feel like a Batman situation. So Kyrie doesn't feel like a backseat. Kyrie's always wanted his own moment. Like he always wanted a team. That's why he left Cleveland to go to Boston. It didn't work out. He went to Brooklyn as a star. Didn't work out. But now that he's with KD, it's working out in Kyrie's favor. I think if you look at the last 12 games or 13 games on that win streak, the numbers that Kyrie is putting up, 28 points, 6 rebounds, 5 assists. The splits that he has is 51% from the field, 42% from three and 94% from the free throw line. Near perfect. I mean, I don't know what else you can ask for Kyrie Irving, which is why they won 12 games in a row before losing to Chicago. I just think what Kyrie Irving's doing for this Brooklyn Nets team deserves a spot in the All-Star game. And this is the first time he's in the All-Star game in a while. Like, he hasn't been in the All-Star game in a while. So it's good to see that Kyrie is getting some flowers from my end, from Chris's end. Can't wait to see if JT agrees with that. But I think it's pretty self-spoken. These two definitely deserve to be in the All-Star game.
Yeah, no, I agree with you there. I mean, I have both of those guys as starters, so I have no argument.
Same with me. Definitely think those are two valid cases for the All-Star game. So in alignment.
I mean, my two reserves are, the next guys that could replace anybody on the starting lineup: Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. Like those are my reserves. Like if those guys next up, it would be those guys that I would use to replace, because what makes them also unique to me is their ability to play 1 through 4, in my opinion. I mean, maybe Jaylen can only play till 1, 2, 3, but I think he could slide over to the 4 and be, productive. But Jason Tatum, you could put him, all 4 positions. Obviously not center because he's not tall enough, but in this league, it really doesn't matter. As long as you could stretch the floor, play good defense, hit the 3, you're a great player. And that's exactly what Jason Tatum is. So those guys are definitely my reserves.
Yeah, I mean, quick and easy. We both have mentioned those two names. I agree with you there. There's not really much to keep going on. I think they're locks. They play for the best team in the NBA. So it's pretty, like you said, it's pretty simple.
Yep, pretty straightforward.
And with that, JT, who are you bringing out as your first two reserves for the East?
So surprise, surprise. Also putting the two guys that really could be the starters for the East, Joel Embiid and Jaylen Brown. I guess starting off with Embiid, putting up monster MVP numbers as usual, career high in points. An underrated aspect of his game that I'd say has definitely grown over the past couple of years, even just personally watching Philly games because I'll have him on my fantasy team occasionally. He's a much better facilitator, which I think goes without saying. Philly definitely needs it when Harden and Maxey have been in and out with injuries, which is also a big reason as to why he really should be a starter. If he was playing in a different era, there's no doubt he would be a starter, let alone he would probably have an MVP or two as well. But Philly is definitely still a solid team as it is. Maxey's missed over half the season. Harden's only played 22 games, I believe, this year. And I think Philly's up to their 40th game maybe, and he still has them as the 5th seed. So once his guys come back healthy, I could definitely also see them making a push for a top 3, top 4 seed. And then for the other guard selection, Jaylen Brown, career high 27 points per game, 7 rebounds per game, as well as shooting nearly 50% from the field, which is also a career high. An underrated aspect, he's currently top 10 in MVP voting. And, years ago, you could really make the case that he was the solid number 2 option, but now he's more of a 1A, 1B option with Tatum. You have every night when someone plays against the Celtics, they really don't know who to press more, just off the fact that he has now pushed himself into that superstar status. He was at a star status for a while, but I believe it was always in question whether he could take that next step. And to my surprise, he really has. And so props to Jaylen Brown. And I would even say he might arguably be the best shooting guard in the league currently. Definitely top 3, in my opinion. But there could be debate for the best.
I'm going to second that, actually, to be honest. I have high praise for Jaylen Brown. He was obviously my starting rotation. There is a debate. There is a debate just because, like you said, 27 as the second option. Put him in Utah, and we'll see how great Jaylen Brown is. You know what I mean? So I do agree with that. I feel like the first two reserves were pretty simple. I mean, they're guys that could be starting. I think this is where the fun comes. I think this is where the gray area comes in. This is where we talk a little bit. This is where we debate. Coming in for my next two, I'm going to to kind of do something different. I'm going to say both of them, see both your reactions, and explain why I feel like they deserve to be all-stars. First, we're going to go with someone a little underrated. He's having a really good season, but his team is shit in the bed, so he's not really getting the flowers that he's deserved. It's going to be the man, the myth, the legend himself, Pascal Siakam, up there in the 6. I think the season that Pascal Siakam is having is not only underrated, but it's underappreciated. I'm going to get into a little bit of why he honestly could have been an all-star starter if Jason Tatum, KD, Giannis, and Embiid all didn't play in the East. But before I go into why he deserves it, I'm going to go in his partner here that also is an East lock in my opinion, but the fact that the East is just so good is not a starter. It's the young guy out there in Indiana, Tyrese Halliburton. Tyrese Halliburton needs to get the flowers he deserves. The season he's putting up is unbelievable. The fact that he's carrying a garbage Indiana Pacers team to a 21-18 record, tied for the 5th, 6th, 7th seed, is something unbeknownst to me. Who does he have on his team? Buddy Hield, solid player. Miles Turner, solid defender. Then you're just listing me a bunch of nobodies. You got TJ McConnell, Aaron Naismith. You just got a bunch of bums. I don't want to hear it. Tyrese Halliburton not only is leading the league in assists, he's putting up 21 points a game, 3 rebounds, whatever, hoopla. But he's doing something that nobody in the NBA has ever done this season. That's averaging 20 points. It's averaging 10 assists, and that's shooting 40% from the 3. No one in the NBA has ever done that. And when you have that stat line to your name, you deserve to be an all-star. Let me read you a couple of stats. So not only is his split 49 from the field, 41 from 3, 88 from free throw, Tyrese Halliburton is someone you can rely on. He has 20 double-doubles for a point guard. Those double-doubles aren't coming from rebounds. They're coming from assists. He's averaging a double-double. He has 8 14-plus assist games this season. He has 8 of them, and he has 4 15-plus assists. That's insane. This man's the point god. He's honestly the traditional point guard that this league has been lacking for a very long time. He has an ugly jumper, but he can score the ball. He's shooting 88% for the free throw line. You foul this guy, he is reliable at the line. 40% from 3, shooting like this. Come on, bro. Leading Indiana to the 7th seed right now, I think without a shadow of a doubt, is astronomically great. And he's putting up big numbers against good teams. I know this recent stretch, this last couple of games, he's been doing really bad. But it happens. He's a young player. He got traded from Sacramento over to Indiana, and he's putting on a show, leading this Indiana Pacers team to not being a lottery team. They're a playoff team, not a well, they're in the play-in category right now, but basically, I wouldn't be surprised if they're a top 6 seed because of the help of Tyrese Halliburton. But to go back to Siakam is putting up 26 points, 8 rebounds, 7 assists as a power forward. Toronto's not doing too good, but Toronto's got a great roster. You got OG Anunoby, you got Fred the Barber Van Vliet. You have so many other people on that team. Gary Trent that just led the big 3 to have a 21-point comeback. They ended up losing, but the numbers that Siakam is putting up is great. Shooting 48% from the field, 34% from 3, 78% from the free throw line. He's got 2 triple-doubles this season, and he just put up a career high at the Garden with 52. Siakam is someone not to play with. I know there's like these memes on Twitter says the only thing that he has in his bag is spin moves, but the only thing that Giannis has in his bag is dunking on people. If you get the ball in the hole, you get the ball in the hole. You're a good NBA player. He has a well-rounded game. He's almost averaging a near triple-double. Like, when was the last time SportsCenter or somebody mentioned Pascal Siakam's name? You never hear it just because Toronto's not doing that well. And let's not forget what he was doing for Toronto when they won in 2019 as a young player, the backup to Kawhi Leonard. Every season he progressively gets better, and he was an all-star starter in the past. It's not like he fumbled. Like, it's not like he's declining. He's inclining. He's climbing up the mountain, climbing up through the ranks as one of the best players in the NBA. It's just there's so much talent in the East. So with that being said, the next 2 reserves for me is Pascal Siakam and Tyrese Halliburton. JT, any thoughts on that?
Not really. To be honest, I definitely do see your point. And with that being said, I definitely do agree that both of them should definitely be in the All-Star game. You know, they're both having solid seasons, especially Tyrese, in my opinion. I'm a huge Tyrese Halliburton fan. Have him in my own fantasy league, so a little biased, but overall, he is a stud. And there's a reason they traded him there's a reason the Kings traded a caliber player like Tyrese for an all-star in return. That just doesn't happen normally. So Tyrese is just the young guy who's gonna take Indiana some pretty great places.
And I see Chris is itching just to say something, I'm assuming, about Tyrese. So go ahead, Chris, take the floor.
Tyrese Halliburton is a wannabe All-Star. You heard Wally Zerbiak. It's a wannabe All-Star. No,
Just
I mean
go ahead.
I mean, I'll give it to you. He's putting up some good numbers. You know, I would say I've seen it before. Chris Paul does it all the time. Hey, that's not neither here nor there. It's not that special. But nah, I'm just trying to be problematic here. Just trying to make Rizzo jump. I see you, Rich, and you was ready to respond.
No, I was. I think. I mean, I'll let you keep a little comment on that. I just think Tyrese Halliburton, if it wasn't for Jaylen Brown, Kyrie Irving, all these other guys, is an all-star starter 10 years ago. Like he's putting up that great in the numbers. But the NBA is on crack now with how many good players there are. But if you're telling me that Tyrese Halliburton's not a starter, that's a question that we got to have a conversation about. But yeah, so that's my take.
I mean, Siakam, he's just gonna put it out there. He's one of my reserves as well. I think he's putting up great numbers for the season, especially for a Toronto team that isn't doing that well. They're doing okay, you know what I mean? But without Siakam, they really aren't much of a team. They have Scotty Barnes, they got Fred VanVleet, Gary Trent. You mentioned some of those guys. But without Siakam, really, the Toronto isn't Toronto. Siakam is really their all-around guy. I feel like he plays basically the 1 through 5 for them, literally. Like there's really no other guy for them on that team. So I don't really have much argument with your picks besides Tyrese Halliburton because want to be All-Star or whatever. Hey, it's neither here nor there.
But if you want to talk, go ahead. I was going to say, if you want to talk about Tyrese Halliburton, you listed Siakam as one of your reserves. Who do you have as your next?
Since I had two, but since you said Siakam, I'd use them. I have Darius Garland. As, a reserve. He's playing with an all-star starter, and he's putting up some pretty, great numbers. You see when Donovan isn't playing, Darius really turns it up. He really gets his buckets, and he also dimes it up. So it doesn't change for him. But what I appreciate about him is when he does play side by side with Donovan, he doesn't truly look for his shot. He lets Donovan shine and does just what he's supposed to do. Support Donovan, get my 15, get my 20. Hey, if we're both on fire, we're both on fire. If Donovan's not feeling it, I'll pick it up for you. I'll pick up the slack. I think Darius is, being the guy who was there before Donovan and, allowing Donovan to come and get comfortable. I think, he's been stellar this season, side by side with a superstar like Donovan, and putting up some numbers that he's been putting up. He deserves an all-star nod to me.
Yeah, I think I touched on Siakam a little bit. I think Siakam 100% is someone that is underappreciated, and Darius Garland's another one. I love Darius Garland. He's actually one of my favorite players in the league as well. I think just his shiftiness, great jump shooting, knows how to find people, facilitate. He's another very traditional-esque kind of point guard. So I think him being an all-star is not surprising. He was just one last season. So yeah, I think Darius Garland's a solid pick.
For me, definitely do see having Garland in the game. That being said, I definitely believe he's having an underrated season, especially with the way Donovan's been playing, as well as the Cavs front lineup just being the Cavs front lineup in terms of their defensive emphasis. But yeah, no complaints from my end.
And with that being said, JT, who do you have next coming off the 2 spots off the bench for your East reserves?
So for my first selection, kind of in line with you with Tyrese, I'm definitely on the Tyrese bandwagon, near 50, 40, 90, as you mentioned. Double machine at 21 points a game and 10 assists per game. He's young too. That's something that should definitely be mentioned. I believe it's his 4th year in the league, I want to say. So definitely a lot more room for growth as it is. I would arguably put him in that MIP conversation with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. And as I mentioned before, he's the cornerstone for the Indiana Pacers, who, realistically speaking, are pretty bad without Tyrese. They have a couple of mid-tier veterans in Buddy Hield and Miles Turner. And not to be disrespectful, but guys who really wouldn't make it on a lot of other NBA teams, if we're being completely honest. And realistically, they were supposed to be in the 1B sweepstakes. So the fact they're even in playoff contention, let alone the upper tier of the play-in teams, should undoubtedly be a reason why he makes the All-Star game. And then my second selection is probably going to be Julius Randle. He's averaging he's averaging 24 points a game, 10 rebounds, and he's tying his point per game total and rebound per game total with what he did 2 years ago when he was an All-Star. For my selections too, I do just want to say that narrative does play a key factor into my decisions. So looking at how the Knicks are playing, if we're going to be completely honest, for my entire lifetime, the Knicks have been a joke of the NBA, if that makes sense.
Dog
But
water.
but with that being said, I do have to give them their props. They are having a pretty solid resurgence, and it is due to the fact that Julius is playing like the Julius of 2 years ago. And people even wrote him off last year. I know last year wasn't easy for the team, especially Julius. But with that being said, I really feel like he's proving people wrong and kind of solidifying his own as not a superstar, of course, but a solid star player.
Chris, any takes on Jonathan's list?
I mean, Halliburton, you guys. I don't know what you guys see in that guy. It's no big deal. I don't know. But Randall, I love that pick. It's a great pick.
Yeah, I agree. Randall is an interesting one because if you told me a month ago, if he is the best player on the Knicks, I'm going to go with no. I didn't think he was, but the fact that he's putting up the numbers that he's putting up and the Knicks are honestly in the midst of a playoff spot, I think he deserves to be an all-star, which is why for the last 3 spots in the East, he's going to take up one of the 3 spots that I have. It was really hard. Granted that there's another guy out there in New York who's really, honestly, I think the reason why they're turning it around, but he just doesn't have the numbers compared to Julius Randle, which is why I have Randle in my spot. I'll touch into a little bit more about Randle later. I'm going to fill up the other 2 spots first. The next spot that I have kind of coincide a little bit with Julius Randle, just because about a couple weeks ago, this player ruined Julius Randle and the Knicks' dreams at the Garden. It's going to be DeMar DeRozan. I think DeMar DeRozan is putting up another stellar season. The Chicago Bulls obviously aren't doing what they're supposed to be doing and fucking winning. You got Vucevic, Kobe White, Zach LaVine, DeMar DeRozan, Alex Caruso, Lonzo Ball without an E. Like, you got a lot of players that should be putting up a winning record, but they're just not doing that. But DeMar DeRozan is not letting that hold him back. He's putting up great numbers, and I'm going to touch up on why I think he's a lock for the All-Star game. And then the final spot. This one was really hard because there's so many good players in the East, and with only 12 spots, I don't know how you can really pick. And I think we're going to differ a little bit here. But my last spot is going to have to go for, honestly, probably the 4th best big man in the league, and that's going to be Bam Adebayo. I think Bam Adebayo definitely deserves a nod, especially with the center position really being a dying breed. Like, besides really Embiid and Jokic, like, what other really good centers are there? I think Bam is putting up a really good season, a season that he's been honestly very much improved. And if you look down on his line, he's averaging 22 points, he's averaging 10 rebounds, he's averaging 3 assists. Bam was somebody in years prior that was looked to be a good facilitator, but Eric Spoelstra and the Heat are telling him to go put that ball in the hole. He's raised up his points per game tremendously. He's grabbing rebounds, putting the ball there. He's got a deadly mid-range. I mean, he has 3 straight 30-point games in the last 3 games. He is going out there to put the ball in the hole. He has 7 30-point games this season. I mean, Bam was not known to be a scorer, and he's out there scoring. Obviously, he's a great defensive player. He's a DPOY candidate. He's at least one of the upper echelon defenders in the league. He can guard the 1 through 5, scoring 54% from the field. And honestly, that's not great for a center when you compare it to the other big men. But his game is not your traditional center. He's not a back to the basket Joel Embiid kind of center. He's out there hitting mid-ranges, floaters, running to the basket. So his game's field. So we have that weakness to his game. Obviously, he's not really shooting any threes, but Bam Adebayo means so much for that Miami Heat team. I know he's coincide with Tyler Hero, Jimmy Butler, who was another possible all-star. I just think you look at Bam Adebayo and you look at that Miami Heat team, I don't think they'd be 20 and 19 without him. I mean, he's one of the healthier players on that Miami Heat team. So I think when you look at big men, you look at narrative. I think a narrative plays a big role, like Jonathan was saying. The fans are not going to vote Bam Adebayo in. I mean, he doesn't have that big of a name. But when you come to the reserves, it comes down to coaching, players all kind of going in to pick who they think deserves to be in it. And I think if you look at the stats, you look at his performance, Bam definitely deserves to be in it. Now, touching back onto DeMar DeRozan, I think DeMar DeRozan, without a shadow of a doubt, is a top 5 clutch player in the NBA. He hits buzzer beaters. He's leading the league, or one of the league leaders, in fourth quarter points per fourth quarter points scoring. He's averaging 27 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists, with splits of 51% from the field, 30% from three. DeMar doesn't shoot that shit, but he can if it really matters in crunch time. 89% from the field. He's putting up a lot more assists and rebounds than he's ever had before. He's 5 8+ assist games this season. And obviously, 8+ assists to some people like Luka, to Halliburton, to all these other guys isn't nothing. But DeMar DeRozan is a score first. Like, he's legitimately a score first player. And the fact that he's out there not only scoring the ball, mind you, he has 4 40-point plus games this season. He's passing the ball. He's rebounding it. He's doing things that Chicago needs him to do. Do I think he makes players around him better? No, but I think the offensive numbers that DeMar DeRozan's putting up is definitely a top 12 player in the East. And then finally, wrapping up, I have Julius Randle. I think the numbers that Julius Randle is putting up now within this last month makes him to be an all-star. 4 35+ point games this season, 3 15+ rebound games this season. Julius Randle has stepped up tremendously when it comes to rebounding. And Jonathan, you alluded to it a little bit when you were talking about Julius Randle. He is going back to the Julius Randle of old a couple seasons ago when he won Most Improved. Honestly, you can debate that he's improved. I mean, his splits in terms of shooting hasn't been great. 46% from the field, 34% from three, and 75% from the free throw line. But Julius Randle is kind of like a guard in a forward's body. You don't really see him play like a forward or a big. He's back to the basket, sure. He's taking these hella contested mid-ranges, shooting like 5, 6, 7, 8 threes a game. Julius Randle's game is a little different, but the month of December alone has proven to me that Julius Randle, no doubt, is the best player on that Knicks team at this moment and deserves a spot on the All-Star team.
I'm surprised at your picks. I'm not gonna lie. Not surprised in a bad way. I'm like, no, they shouldn't. They don't deserve it. Just surprised that you would go with these 3 guys. Maybe Bam. I off chance thought of Bam, that you would pick Bam, but Randle and DeRozan, I'm really shocked that you would pick them. But they are having great seasons. I'm a Knicks fan. I watch every Knicks game. Randle's my guy. DeRozan, I've seen him play because he's, I think, stuck in back in that mid-range era. I can't really see him anymore in the All-Star games because what is he going to do? Pull up mid-ranges the whole game? I mean, nobody wants to see that. Nobody wants to see that anymore in the All-Star game. That's in an All-Star game. If you're asking me to start a team, have DeRozan join, I have no problem with that. That's a nice scorer. He's a great scorer. But when it comes to an All-Star game, I don't want to see him take a pull-up mid-range. Bam, I like Bam. Bam's a versatile 5. I mean, he was a couple years ago, he was like the point center for Miami. His numbers, his assist numbers were up. They're down a bit, but that's because Miami got Kyle Lowry, Jimmy. Those guys are going to take the load off of Bam now. It's just, hey, Bam, go grab me boards, go get in the paint, go get me buckets. So I'm just surprised at your picks. I'm not mad at them. I think those are good picks. But for my 3 picks, I have Randle because I think he was very deserving of it. The last few stretch games that he's been playing, those were it. But I think just overall, to me, this entire season, he was an all-star. Playing next to a guy like Jalen Brunson, who comes from the Mavs, playing with Luka, being a sidekick, him coming here sort of being to be the number 1 guy, even though Randle's there. Jalen was really pushing, and not so much pushing forcefully, but just nudging his way like, hey, I'm a good player. I get buckets too, Julius, and becoming the number 1 guy for the Knicks. So Julius being able to take that step back to me and still having great numbers, because he was still averaging 27 throughout the whole season. 3, Jalen goes down and his numbers skyrocket. Like you said, his last few games, 30 points, 40 points, 16 rebounds, 12 rebounds, 5 assists. I mean, this really did push his his chance at an all-star spot. I might have said starter, to be honest, but that's just me being a biased Knicks fan. That's just my Knicks hat coming on. I apologize. Let me take it off. All right. That's just me. My second pick is Jalen Brunson. I'll be honest. I'm taking Jalen Brunson as an all-star reserve. Why? Because he's doing what most players can't do and making the Knicks relevant and looking good while doing it. He's played against some great players, and he hasn't backed down. Every game he's played, 15 or more points, 20 points, 3 rebounds, 5, 6 assists. His assists have even gone up. He was hurt the last few games. Knicks, they showed that Jalen is a very vital piece to the team. I think what Jalen brings to the team is, something of all-star caliber. Playing 35 games, 30 minutes a game, 1 steal, his field goal percentage. The guy is the mid-range demon. He goes into the paint like he's 7 foot. I don't get it. I don't know why he does it, but he does it anyways. He scores efficiently. I think he's an all-star. For my third spot, I was going back and forth with this third spot. Halliburton, DeRozan. I was going back and forth. I gave it to Halliburton because everything you guys were saying. He's been putting up some good numbers. I can't just knock him because, the wannabe all-star thing. I think he's played well enough to get a nod as a reserve. Do I think if it's between him or Brunson, should he get it? Absolutely not. But that's just my opinion. That's how I see it. These 3 guys, though, if just somehow they could all make it, it'd be great. I think they all deserve it. Randall putting up great numbers. Brunson putting up great numbers. Halliburton putting up great numbers.
No, I think, I'm in agreement with Julius Randle and Tyrese Halliburton. Jalen Brunson, I think it's a little bit of that Knicks bias. I think as someone that watches a lot of Jalen Brunson, who played with the Mavs, obviously plays with the Knicks now, the dude is special. And I mentioned this earlier. I do wholeheartedly believe he is the reason why the Knicks have turned around to be a relevant team. And I think on paper, he's probably the best Knicks player. But when you look at stats and when you look at someone that the Knicks rely on, Tom Thibodeau runs his guys to the ground. Julius Randle is out there and he's putting up numbers. And honestly, my thing is you got 12 all-star spots for the East. The Knicks aren't a top 3-4 seed. So for them to take 2 of the 12 spots, for me, just you got to pick one or the other, in my opinion. And I picked Julius Randle over Jalen Brunson.
Yeah, I'm aligned with Rizzo's thinking. I definitely do see the case for Brunson to be an all-star, but with that being said, the East is just so talented, especially at the guard position. And while Jalen is putting up phenomenal numbers, I wouldn't say it pushes him to that all-star level, if that makes sense. I'd say he's the tier right below it. But yeah, your other selections I completely agree with as well.
So out of the guards that you guys say, Mitchell, Kyrie, Garland, Halliburton, right? Anybody else that I'm missing?
Jonathan mentioned Trae Young. I didn't have Trae Young in my all-star list, truthfully.
I didn't have Trae Young either. I because of the team performance of Jalen's been picking up for the Knicks, I'd have him over Trae. I'm not mad at you guys saying that maybe you wouldn't pick him over the other 4 guys, but you guys are making it seem Jalen's here and the rest are all the way up there, and I just don't see it.
I'm going to be honest. This could be a hot take. I don't know if Jonathan has this on his list, so I don't want to speak too much. I want to wait till he gives his list. But I would have had Porzingis over Jalen Brunson this season. Genuinely. I think there's a couple of other guys that deserve it way over Jalen Brunson. I think Porzingis definitely is there for me. I think obviously Bam, DeRozan. I honestly could probably list like 2 more guys, but I don't want to say too much because I want Jonathan to give his list. So yeah, go ahead, JT.
Wait 1 second, JT. Just you said Porzingis? If I have to clear my ears out.
Kristaps Porzingis. Porzingis is putting up an all-star season, no doubt about it. Averaging 2 blocks a game, 22 points. Listen, he plays in Washington, so nobody gives him the recognition. But I think Porzingis could very much well be an all-star this season.
No, go ahead, JT.
I'm not gonna lie though. Before I get into my list, I do see Rizzo's point. I'm not saying I put him there because I definitely did not. I didn't put him in honorable mention, but I could see the argument for it. Porzingis is having an underrated season, given the fact he's in Washington. But to start off my list, I first have Bam Adebayo, as Rizzo kind of touched upon it before. He is that consistent, nearly double double machine for Miami this season, given Jimmy Butler, who's been their number one option for the last 4 years, has been out with injury. In addition, from that, you could also make the case he's a top three center, top four, but arguably top three. And overall, he's just having a great season. I know Miami currently is eighth in the East, but with that being said, let them get their health back, let them get a couple of games in all together as with their main core unit, and let them try to take strides. And in addition to that, another point that has to be mentioned probably has to be the fact that Kyle Lowry is not the Kyle Lowry of old, and because of that, whatever impact that Bam Adebayo has only further increases. So definitely give that first nod to Bam. My second nod, I know you had touched upon it earlier, but I would put Pascal Siakam. I put him later in the list just because of the fact that Toronto is the 12th seed currently in the East. And even though he is averaging a career high 26 a game, as well as a career high 6.5 assists, the fact that Toronto is 12th in the East really does hurt his case for an all-star game. But nonetheless, he's having a great season. And then the last selection, which I know is going to raise some eyebrows, and I mean, it's given the fact that for me, as I mentioned previously, it's all about narrative. It's all about winning for me. And I have James Harden. Yes, I have James Harden as the last selection for the All Star game. He's averaging 22 and close to 11. Philly is the fifth seed in the East. I did have him over someone like DeMar just off the fact that DeMar is towards the bottom of the Eastern Conference, while Harden is at least in the playoffs, right? And one narrative that has definitely not been mentioned recently has been the fact that you barely hear people saying James Harden has fallen off anymore. Not saying he's anywhere near Rockets James Harden or anything like that, but people were talking about this dude as if he's a legit scrub. He's not a scrub. He was an MVP literally 4 or 5 years ago. So I feel like Harden's definitely been disrespected in that regard, but nonetheless, he is having a decent bounce back season, and he should be in contention for an all-star selection.
No, I think that honestly, James Harden really was somebody I considered as well. I think James Harden is putting up great numbers, and when Joel Embiid wasn't playing, James Harden was there to pick up the slack. I mean, he had a 2020 triple double as well. I mean, James Harden still can go out there and get buckets. James Harden isn't a bum. He's just not 50-point triple double James Harden. I think the narrative in terms of winning, I can agree with. I I think we vary in terms of the last couple spots. I think Bam, we all agreed. But it's interesting to see. I think the guards is where we all kind of differed. There's a lot of good guards in the East, but you had James Harden in your list. Me and Chris didn't. You had Trey Young as your starter, and we didn't even have Trey Young in our list. So I think Chris had Darius Garland. Neither of us had Darius Garland. So it's a lot. I mean, Chris had Jalen Brunson, but he's just a biased Knicks fan. But it's crazy to see how much variety there is in terms of the East guards, and I don't think James Harden's a bad shout. So I'm pretty okay with your list.
Yeah, besides the Jalen Brunson comment, I'm gonna die on that hill. But I'm not mad at the James Harden. I was honestly thinking of putting him on my list, but as you said, he's just besides being a household name, he didn't really, wow me because we know that the Sixers is Joel's team. You know what I mean? He's just there to support Joel. If Harden can give you a flashy game like he did, what was it? The 20 assist game, like the 2010-20 game that he had. Like he'll give you those flashes for sure, which I would push him up the ranks for sure for an all-star, but I'm not mad at it. Bam, you know, I with Rizzo, I was surprised by it, but I agree with it. And Siakam, I'm pretty sure we all had Siakam, being all-star, so can't be mad at it.
No, that's great. That's great. We all went down the list on our East starters. Obviously, we kind of had a little bit difference in terms of the guards. Before we go into the West, I just want to give a little segment. Anybody that you guys are surprised that maybe we didn't mention at all in terms of that made our lists, Chris?
I mean, me personally, Trey Young. I'll be honest. I'm surprised that he himself that I didn't think over too much. I just like Trey. Yeah, just being Trey. Nah, just let's. I think these guys are right now better than him currently, especially with team success and other things like that. I mean, Paulo Banchero. I see that he's up there in fan voting. I was thinking of putting him instead of Tyrese, to be honest, just to piss you off, Rizzo. I'm sorry, but just I think he's having a stellar rookie season. I think he'd be the first rookie selected in an All-Star game since 2011. I wouldn't be mad, but I kind of would be because there are other players, better team players that are on the list that could have that spot. But he's a guy that I thought somebody would bring up. Kyle Kuzma's also up there in fan voting. You mentioned Porzingis. I could get behind Porzingis a little bit, not too much. I don't know why, but yeah, I mean those guys are surprises to me that we haven't brought up. Well, Rizzo, you brought up Porzingis, of course, but Kuzma, Banchero, even LaMelo Ball, even though he's played a small amount of games, I'm surprised nobody was like, "Hey, LaMelo was there a couple years ago. It was fun to watch. Why not have him again?"
Yeah, I agree. JT, you?
Pretty much in alignment with Chris's selection. I guess I would add Jimmy Butler, but of course, understanding that he was injured for a decent amount this season really doesn't put him in favor for a selection. Also, given the fact that the East is just stacked now at this point. But overall, yeah, that's pretty much the only top of mind name that comes to me at the moment.
Yeah, no, I go ahead, Chris.
My bad. I agree with the Jimmy Butler, but to me, I think Jimmy's just a fun. I think he's just a fun pick. I'll be honest. I'm not saying he's not an all-star caliber player, but like you said, I think there's just so much more talent. But just being Jimmy Butler, who he is, his personality and stuff like that, I think people just gravitate towards it and just like, hey, make him an all-star.
My thing with Jimmy Butler, obviously the injury and whatnot, but he's a player for me that just tries in the playoffs. Like he won't go out there. He doesn't care about putting 25 and 5 and 5 to get the MVP votes. He just wants to win, and I respect that. But when you see the other stats of all these other people, I just don't think it lines up in terms of like other all stars. Like, is he an all star player? Yes. In terms of this season, I don't see it. I know initially we had a 13th spot, and I was going to die on this hill. I do think Kristaps Porzingis deserves to be an all star. He just plays for a shitty Washington team. Kyle Kuzma and Bradley Beal are having good seasons too, but Bradley Beal's been injury prone. Kyle Kuzma, Porzingis, I wouldn't mind which of the two you want to pick, but I just think with Porzingis' shot blocking ability, that he's almost averaging 2 a game, shooting 35% from 3 at 7-3, averaging 22 points. I mean, Porzingis, he's almost averaging a double-double. I think he needs some flowers. He didn't make my list, but if I had a 13th spot, he would have been on it.
Flowers in the garbage for that guy.
All right. Well, no, that was great. That was a great Eastern Conference breakdown. Now we'll have a little bit of the fun when it comes to the West. I started to go around the first time for the East, so we'll do it in reverse order. JT, the floor is yours. Who are your 5 starters for the Western Conference?
So to start off with the guards, first things first, your favorite Rizzo, Luka Doncic, top 3 MVP candidate. He's been putting up monster numbers, like 2K numbers, which is insane. Yep, there's the jersey. Yep. Averaging 34 points a game, nearly 9 rebounds and 9 assists per game. His shooting stats are better in terms of his field goal percentage. He's tied for his career high in free throws as well, but he's also shooting more attempts per game, which shows he's definitely upped his aggression, which is insane because he was already top 5 player in the league before. Now he's really solidifying himself as an arguable number 1. And Dallas is also currently 4th in the West. Earlier in the season, I know they had their ups and downs. We're in between playoff contention, not so much. But lately, they've been picking it up, and I feel like if they continue that momentum, Luka will honestly win MVP. Next, for the other guard spot, just based off popularity. Well, not just based off popularity. He is having a great season, but he is injured at the moment. I'm gonna have to give the nod to Steph Curry. 30 points a game, 7 rebounds, 7 assists. Another 50, 40, 90 season for him. Uh, his 7 rebounds a game is a career high, and he's grabbing a career high in rebounds as a point guard at the age of 34. I definitely think that does go a little under the radar. And to be completely honest, if it wasn't Steph as my other starter, I would have probably chosen someone like John Morant. But given that Steph's been in the league longer, he's definitely more popular. That fan vote is definitely going to propel him at least to starter selection. Next, for my front court, the guy who I actually have as the Western Conference captain, LeBron. 29 points a game, 8 rebounds, 7 assists at the age of 38. How many other people that have ever played in the league? First of all, I've even made it up to being 38 years old in the league, let alone putting up these type of numbers at 38. Fan votes are definitely going to carry him into fan votes are definitely going to carry him probably to be a captain, but at a minimum a starter. And I do have to mention that even though he does put up phenomenal numbers, if I had to personally choose who the captain would be, I would give the nod to Luka just off winning. But for ever since his tenure started beyond the bubble championship, which does come with an asterisk, LeBron's time with the Lakers has not been successful. And the LeBron that all three of us grew up with, the dominant force that we now see in Giannis, unfortunately, is long gone. And I feel like because it lasted for as long as it did, people are kind of not accepting that, LeBron's human. He's bound to fall off, and he's not falling off in terms of numbers, but in terms of winning impact. So next on my list, I have Jokic, averaging a near triple-double at 26, 11, and 10. He has a career high in field goal percentage. The Nuggets are currently the number 1 seed in the West, which I feel like not a lot of people are talking about at the moment. And the fact he's even averaging near a triple-double with the return of his sidekicks in Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr. does also give him that upper edge. He's currently first in MVP voting as well. And then for my last starter, and this may raise some eyebrows, it may not, I don't know, but I have Zion, just off the fact that 26 points a game, 7 rebounds, nearly 5 assists. Narrative, as I've mentioned over and over again, is a big thing for me. So the fact he's leading the Pelicans to a top 3 seed in the West thus far, even without his second in command and Brandon Ingram being there for a decent amount of the season, should definitely be more stated. And in addition to that, he's starting to prove why he was the number 1 draft pick in his class. Obviously, Ja Morant also has a very valuable case for that number 1 spot, but last year people were turning Zion into a meme, with all these fat jokes, and he's really proving the haters wrong, and that's definitely something that should also go without being appreciated.
Yeah, I think. I think that's a solid 5. I won't comment too much because I'm going to let Chris go next in terms of the list. I think it's very solid. I don't really think there's anything wrong. I think the West, in my opinion, is maybe a little bit more cut and dry in terms of the starters. Maybe I'm wrong. We'll see with Chris and myself. But I think it's pretty solid. I don't see any whoa,
I think me and JT basically had the same idea. I have backcourt Luka and Steph. I mean, it's pretty obvious. Luka. I mean, you see the guy, you just jaw drop at every chance you get. His numbers are up there. I mean, the last 5 games he's played, ridiculous numbers. So that guy's definitely a lock in my eyes at the All-Star game. Steph, I think, so much of popularity and wanting to see him play at an All-Star game, because it's always fun just to see Steph shoot freaking half-court shots at all times. But I think before his injury, he was putting up all-star numbers. I mean, people really expected him to be the captain of the all-star team during his run. even though the Warriors aren't putting up those exact winning record, but he keeps them relevant in my eyes. So I give him that the spot next to Luka. My front court, I have the Joker. I mean, it's self-explanatory. It's a guy's a walking triple double. You know what I mean? Like pass, rebound. And if he has to, he scores. Just a fun guy to watch as well. I have this guy here just because he's always there, in my opinion. It's LeBron. He's just, he's just always there. You have to have LeBron James as a starter as long as LeBron is putting up good numbers and he's, LeBron James. He's not undisputed face of the league currently right now because he's LeBron. So you have to have him as an all-star starter. But for my power forward position for this final pick, I'm going with Lauri Markkanen. I'll be honest. I have Lauri Markkanen as a starter. I think he's putting up great numbers and really propelled the Jazz for those first 20 some odd games. They were, up there in the seedings. Lauri. I mean, I was very impressed by what he's done this season, just all around. You know what I mean? The guy's averaged, my bad, I have my notes, but they just locked on me. The guy's played 37 games, 34 minutes, 24 points, 8 boards, 2 assists, 52 from the field, 42 from 3. I mean, the guy's up there for most improved player, and he's carrying a team right now that's supposed to be tanking, which right now it's looking like they're going that direction now. But you were very surprised. They were one of the surprising teams at the beginning of the season. Where you're just like, what? Where the hell is the Utah Jazz coming from? And why the hell is Lauri Markkanen playing like the second coming of Larry Bird? What's going on? So I have him as an all-star starter, to be honest.
Just like the banner says, Lauri, I mean, in a sense, I don't have a problem with him being an all-star. I think I'm going to get to him later. I mean, granted, the all-star game's in Utah. He plays for Utah. It's very possible that he can get the votes to start. He's not having a bad season at all. I mean, he's in contention for most improved. Lauri as a starter, man, essentially that's saying he's having a top 10 season. So Lauri, that's my reaction.
He's put up some good performances. Come on now.
Yeah,
JT?
I'm not gonna lie. Pretty much in alignment with Rizzo there. Lowry definitely is having an all-star season. I actually do have him later in my list, but with that being said, starter is kind of nuts. It's kind of nuts. I'd even make the case that if he was healthy, it would probably go to someone like AD, to be honest. But there's a reason I didn't even put him there. You know what I'm trying to say? I just think that Lowry's a star, but he's not nowhere near, but he's not a superstar at this point in time. So I can't give him that nod, in my opinion.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was going to say, like I said, I don't think it's like insane because I know you're doing like a traditional like small forward, power forward, center. Like Lauri is like a top 3-4 power forward in the league, so like I'm not like far off that, but I honestly think there's 2 other power forwards in the West alone that probably deserve it over he does.
I can see where you guys are coming from for sure. I'm pretty sure I know which power forward you guys might say, and I was thinking of AD, but I just looking at the impact that Lauri had for Utah, I just think it was just better in my eyes, especially the game being in Utah as well. It was like Lauri's definitely stepping up. Like I don't know. It's just to me, I see him as a starter. I look around and I go, Lauri Markkanen, like why not?
No, I feel like I said he plays for Utah, games in Utah. I could see it happening. 2 different lists for the most part. That's pretty similar besides the power forward. I have a little bit of a different list. So we'll start off obviously with my GOAT, the man himself, Luka Doncic. I think he should be the captain without a doubt. I know in the first episode I ranked him as the number 4 player just because during that point on Christmas, he just wasn't winning. And then literally as soon as the podcast came out, he dropped a 60-20-10 triple-double, scored 3 50-point games in a span of 5 days. Like, he's coming out winning. Their Mavericks are on a 7-game win streak. I know they're playing the Celtics right now. I don't really know what's happening, but I'm sure he's probably putting up insane numbers there too. It's not far-fetched to say Luka's playing in the NBA right now. I mean, like 34-9-9. I don't even want to say his stats because everyone knows how insane that man is. I think 100% he's a lock. We said in the first episode, this man is shooting step back threes for all his threes, 35% from three, 51% from the field, averaging a near triple double with almost averaging 35 points. That's Michael Jordan rookie, almost like year 4 numbers. It's insane, without a doubt. My other backcourt mate, something a little different from you guys. I'm gonna have to go with the person that I have locked for the most improved player, and that's Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. I think what SGA is doing this season is 100% lock for the All-Star game. I know you guys both had Steph Curry. Obviously, Steph Curry is a superstar in this league. He's probably gonna get voted in by the votes. But if we're not talking about votes, I think you look at SGA's season, and I don't see how he's not a starter. Obviously, averaging 31 points, 5 rebounds, 6 assists, with the splits of 50, 35, and 92% from the free throw line. 35% from three for Shea. Guy's not a shooter. He shoots like Tyrese Halliburton, broken ass jump shots, but they go in. He's doing something that, obviously only a few people in the league can do, and making OKC not a 5-30 team right now. I know they're in the bottom of the barrel. I know they're not doing that well, but if you go to a casual NBA fan and tell them to list 3 players on the OKC Thunder without listing Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, I don't think anyone can list anyone. Like, sure, you got Josh Giddey, but then you have 2 guys named Jalen Williams. You have just a bunch of nobodies, realistically. So what he's doing, and they're almost the same record as the Lakers, who were supposed to be title contenders. Like, I think what SGA is doing is amazing. Obviously, Steph Curry is not on my starting backcourt. I just think the injury is going to play a little bit of a role to it. And I just think Shai needs to get his flowers. And when will Shai ever start in another All-Star game? He's probably going to have the best season of his career, which he's having right now, which is why I have him as a starter. And then, obviously, my GOAT, LeBron James, is going to be the captain. The season that he's putting on at age 38 is unbelievable. I mean, he had like a stretch where he had 7 straight game or 30-point games. In his last 10 games, he's averaging 35, 8, and 7. For being 38 years old, he's going on a tear. And Chris, you said it, like, as long as LeBron is in the league and he's putting up decent numbers, he will always be a starter. It's just because he's LeBron James. It's kind of the same thing like Michael Jordan, same thing like Kobe. They're literally just the face of the league. But it's really not pity. Like, he's not a starter because, oh, it's LeBron James. Like, he 1,000% deserves to be a starter regardless of his name or not. So I think with him being in year 20, still being a starter, it's going to be his 19th All-Star selection. 19 straight, mind you. It's without a doubt. Obviously, the next person I'm going to go with is the Joker, top 3 contender for MVP, almost averaging a triple-double, putting up video game numbers, 40, 27, and 10, 45, 15, 15. Like, you just list the numbers. Like, he's a cheat code. That's without a doubt. We've commented so much about Jokic, not only on the first episode, but JT touching upon him now. It's pretty obvious. Next person I'm going to go with is someone that I agreed with JT. I think it's Zion. I was surprised to hear you say that maybe Zion was a little bit of an interesting pick. I think, to me, like, Zion's one of the more locked in players. I think the Pelicans being a top 4 seed plays a big factor on that. They were the number 1 seed in the West for a good period of time, for about like a 2-week stretch. And that's thanks to Zion. Zion's averaging 26 points, 7 rebounds, 5 assists. He's dishing the ball. He's grabbing the rebound. Dude, this guy is a tank. You can't guard him. Did you see what he did to Minnesota? You had D'Lo in the press conference saying that he's playing football. That's literally like alpha male basketball tendencies, that you made another man go to the press conference and is like, he's not playing the right sport. Like, that's the effect that Zion has. He's, well, mind you, I'm going to read his splits. 61% from the field. 61% from the field. And Zion is not DeAndre Jordan. Like, that's nuts. 37% from 3. Zion is shooting 37% from 3. Is he shooting 6 a game? No, but the fact that if I give Zion a 3 and he's going to make him almost 4 out of 10 tries, are you kidding me? That's amazing. And he's averaging 71% from the free throw line. The numbers that Zion are putting are clearly leading to W's. I think, like, the difference that I had with Zion and Lauri Markkanen, and I will spoil a little bit, Lauri Markkanen is an all-star for me as a reserve, but Lauri's aren't leading to wins. Zion's dominant game is leading to wins, which is why I think, without a doubt, he was one of the 5 starters for me in the West.
So I can't get a SGA with a bunch of question marks and exclamation points? He's a lock?
I think so. I think
Lock?
Steph Curry's injured. You know what? He's going to be injured for the next 3 weeks. Like the numbers that SGA is going to put up for the next 3 weeks, I just think is going to outshine Steph Curry.
I don't disagree with you, but I thought if you weren't going with Steph Curry, you'd go with Ja Morant. I'll be honest.
Ooh.
That's who I thought you were gonna pick. I didn't. SGA was surprising to me. I knew you might have him as an all-star, but has him as a starter.
I think, and go ahead, JT.
No, pretty much I do have Shea on my list as well. But with that being said, as a starter is kind of nuts, especially on an OKC team, which everyone knows is still in their rebuilding era. Let's be completely honest. They're nowhere near contention, let alone playoffs. And for all we know, a couple of years down the line, you could make the argument that if OKC continues on this trend, Shea's numbers are empty stats. You could make that argument if this lasts another year or two, maybe. So, with that being said, starter, not too sure, but he is having an all-star caliber season.
Fair enough. No, cool. Go ahead, Chris.
And to what you said before about Shea, when you said that when's the next time he'll start an all-star game? I don't know. If OKC decides to go, hey, let's blow this up, let's get Shea out of here, or Shea decides to go, hey, let me get out of here, and he goes to a good team, I think Shea could put up those same numbers on a different team and be an all-star and really be productive, in my opinion.
And the only reason why we haven't seen it, like he's never played for a contending team. I mean, when he played for the Clippers, he got garbage time. So I don't know if we'll see Shea ever score 31 again. I mean, it's possible that scoring 30 in this league is hard to do. And he went from averaging 23, 24 last year. So 31, like, that's hard to do in this league. So I think you got to give the guy his flowers. Steph Curry will always start. Steph Curry's an all-star, but he's hurt. Give Shy his flowers.
I think really the only other hesitancy with Shea, at least being a starter, is the fact that to me he kind of has a DeJounte Murray effect to where, last season you look at how DeJounte played, everyone was really, really invested in DeJounte. I believe the Spurs were in that playoff play-in contention for, if not a majority or all this for the entire season. Not entirely sure on that, but I really do feel like if Shea's ever placed in a situation where there is a clear, concrete number one option, his decline in terms of stats will really go to show the real impact he has as a player. And I don't know if I could confidently say that once he's considered a number two option on a team, he could put up definitely not numbers he's putting up now, but maybe like lower 20s. I wouldn't necessarily even say he'll put up all-star numbers in 2020, whatever.
Yeah, fair enough. I like I said, is it a bold pick? Sure. Is it bolder than Laurie? I don't think so. I think he's closer to starting than Laurie is. So that's just my take. But with that being said, those are all our starters. Jonathan, take it away with your first two West reserves.
Gotcha. So, I guess starting it off for me has to be my boy Ja Morant. He's currently leading the Grizzlies as the number 2 seed, and I'm definitely gonna sound biased as I know Rizzo knows D Rose is my favorite player. So every dream and aspiration I've had for D Rose, I am hoping to God I live through Ja Morant. So I'm really high on Ja Morant's ceiling and his potential. At a minimum, he definitely does deserve an all-star spot. Arguable starter as well. You could probably mix him and Steph in between. But with that being said, yes, Ja is having a great season once again. And then I'm going to throw out one of my front court options. So I'm going to put AD, as I previously mentioned, 27 points a game, 12 rebounds, averaging a double-digit rebounds for the first time in 4 years, which was a fact that was surprising to me when I discovered it earlier. And just watching Laker games, I know they are kind of mid, if we're going to be completely honest. But one thing I have started to see, especially as the seasons develop, is everything that everyone associated with the Lakers have wanted for years. And that's really starting to see AD take over as that number one option for the Lakers. He's starting to show that double-double or that monster double-double consistency. And this was really his best season since 2018. And 2018 was the last year he was on the Pelicans. And if we can remember the narrative around that, AD was considered a top 5 player in the league. He went to the Lakers, and the hype was they're going to win the chip for the next 5 years or so, right? But given that injuries have really kind of messed up his hype, he's really starting to prove that, hey, I am that guy. I'm him. And I'm really going to take us to where we should be.
No, I think those are two solid picks as well. I don't really have any qualms against them. Chris, anything?
No, I don't. Ja is definitely one of my guys as a reserve. So is AD. So we both are in agreement there of the reserves. So, but I didn't want to say AD right away because I feel like I was gonna get attacked because my next guys were Ja and Zion. Because I know Zion not being a starter was, Laurie being over him. So Ja was definitely my next guy up with AD. So I'll touch up on AD. I agree with you 100% with the AD situation. He's a phenomenal player when he's healthy and he stays healthy. That guy's a problem. Like he's truly a superstar. And the numbers he was putting up once LeBron went down to really help the Lakers stay at least in the conversation of the West was pretty amazing. And it sucks that he had to go down. But, if he gets back healthy, I think, yeah, he deserves an all-star nod, definitely. Ja, I mean, there's not much to say. He's just an impactful player. I mean, the guy's just a walking highlight reel. And like you said, as D Rose fans, we do live through John Morant. Like literally, like if there's something we would say is that if Derrick Rose stayed healthy, it would be Ja. Like Derrick Rose Derrick Rose walked so Ja Morant can run. You know what I mean? And Zion, he's another walking highlight reel. Everybody has him as a starter, has him very high on his list, but you know, I just didn't think he was having a better season than Laurie, or just not so much not having a better season. Just I didn't see as impactful as a Laurie Markkinen, especially for a Jazz franchise fan base. Excuse me.
No, that's fair. I think we're at the point now where we're kind of in similar boats. I know we were like doing the 2-2, but like you mentioned AD, you mentioned John, you mentioned all Zion as well. So I'm gonna kind of touch up on my selections coming off the bench. I'm gonna do 3 as well, just because we kind of touched up on it. My first 3 coming off the bench, it's gonna be Anthony Disney, Anthony Street Clothes Davis, as well as John Morant, and then obviously the greatest shooter of all time, Steph Curry. These 3 obviously coming off the bench. I think obviously most of them are without saying. Steph Curry obviously averaging a 50, 40, 90 season once again, averaging 37 and 7. Like Jonathan, you touched up earlier, Steph Curry's having a career high in rebounds. He's passing the ball. He's getting his team involved. I mentioned Steph Curry and my qualms with him in the first episode of the podcast with I just don't think his play is really making people around him better. And I still am going to stand on that. I think Steph Curry really makes his team better by just being such a threat offensively, but I don't really see him making others better in the sense of like a LeBron, of a Luca, of all these other players, whether that's on the defensive floor, passing the ball. I think he just plays in a great system centered around him, but that's neither here or there. Steph Curry is great, 100% deserves to be an all-star. And if he wasn't hurt with a little shoulder, he probably was a starter for me. John Morant, the next reincarnate of Derrick Rose. Obviously, he's having a great season, averaging 27, 6, and 8. 3 triple doubles this season. Ja's putting up some numbers. I mean, Ja is not no slouch. I mean, he put a low market team in Memphis on the map. I mean, Memphis fucking played on Christmas for once. And he's really just giving this Memphis team a gritty aspect and a gritty aura around. And people are tuned into Memphis. And I think that's because of Ja. I mean, he's scoring a lot as well. He has 14 30-plus point games this season. And the season high he had was 49 against Houston. So he's definitely got the capabilities to go out there and put the ball in the hole. John Morant is special. He was number 7 on my top 10 list of best players in the NBA. And there's a reason for that. And then obviously Anthony Davis. And honestly, I think Anthony Davis before his injury is almost having a resurgence in a sense. Like he was good on the Lakers. Like he was good, but he wasn't great. Like he wasn't like Anthony Davis Nola great. And he's like putting up some great numbers. Like you can argue he's also in that MVP case if he didn't get hurt. I mean, he was putting 55 points, 17 rebound games, 38-16, 37-21, 30-18, 37-18, 44-10 and 4. Like, these are great numbers from Anthony Davis. And, they're not really leading to the Lakers winning, which is insane to know that LeBron and AD are putting up great seasons and the Lakers are still 5 games below 500. It's kind of sad, but AD definitely deserves some love because the numbers and the season he's putting up before his injury are stellar.
I have no arguments with your picks. I mean, those are 3 solid guys.
Yeah, I think I was gonna say I think we all kind of agreed on that. That was kind of the simple stuff.
Yeah,
agreed.
All right, well, go ahead, JT, take the floor.
I'm gonna list out my next 3. So for my first selection, I gotta go with the boy Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. You guys have pretty much touched upon everything. Increases scoring tremendously. One thing that wasn't mentioned yet, he increased his field goal percentage as well, and he's shooting nearly 10% higher for a career high in free throw percentage as well. And he's averaging a block and steal. Only goes to show that he really does deserve to be front runner for most improved player. Next on the list, I got Chris's boy Lowry. Definitely got to have him as an all-star, 24 points a game, 8.5 rebounds, career highs across the board, including shooting. So he's definitely taken advantage of having the number 1 role by his side. And once again, Utah is in playoff or play-in tournament contention. And we all thought they would be first in line for Wemby. So he would probably be the most improved player if Shai Gilgeous-Alexander didn't exist and have the season he's having. But overall, phenomenal season. And then for my third selection, I've got to go with Dame Lillard. I'd argue that he is the comeback player of the year, averaging 27, 4, and 7. Blazers are the 7th seed, and they were predicted to be at least a lottery team at a minimum this year. I really feel like because Dame got injured last season, a lot of people forgot the real impact he's had. And it also should be mentioned that he is a top 75 player of all time. And there's a reason for that. You don't just get deemed with something of that prestigious rank. You know what I mean? So overall, he's having a great bounce back season.
3 solid picks. Obviously, I touched up on SGA. Chris touched up on Lauri Markkanen. And then Lillard's making his first appearance so far on the podcast. And I have a couple of comments on Lillard that I'll save when I bring it up. But pretty solid. Chris, your takes?
Yeah, SGA, Lauri, guys that I definitely have. And I am shocked by Lillard. I'm not gonna lie. I'm pretty shocked by Lillard. Has he? How many games has he played this season? Does anybody have that on the top of their heads?
I think he's played a decent amount. I think he's at 28, 29 around there. So he's definitely played enough.
25 games. He's played 25 games. I mean, for me, of course, Lillard it's Dame. He's the household name. He's the popular guy. But this season, he hasn't, hasn't really wowed me enough to give him an all-star nod. But I'm not mad at the pick. I wouldn't be mad if he made the all-star team as a reserve.
All right. Well, that being said, Chris, take it away with your next 2.
Okay. My next 2 were SGA and Jordan Poole. Jordan Poole. Absolutely. I'm doing this right now. I am doing this right now. Jordan freaking Poole. I don't know. I mean, the guy's putting up numbers when he's playing for Steph. Come on, they don't make you an all-star.
I'm just gonna let you comment. Just say what you gotta say. I need to hear why Jordan Poole's an all-star.
Listen, no matter. I mean, I had this other guy that I know I'm gonna get flagged for anyways. So I'm just gonna get this out the way first, and then we're gonna talk about the rest. But yeah, SGA, we've touched upon it, and I think Jordan Poole, to me, in my eyes, is definitely an all-star. Reserve. I'm not saying he's a starter. I think he's a reserve. If you have to pick a last spot, I'm giving it to Jordan Poole. I mean, there's not many other players I'd give that to. If you're talking about the last spot as a reserve, I'm giving it to Jordan Poole. There's just no doubt about it. A guy who averages a
Go
guy
ahead, go
a
ahead.
guy, a guy who averages when he comes off the bench, he averages 20, maybe a bit less than that. 4 boards, 4 assists. When he starts, especially in his last 5 games, 28, 5-5. I mean, the guy's special to me. Especially when Steph isn't around and he takes over and like he takes Steph's powers and just sifts through him. He's an all-star. It's a pool party. Welcome to Utah. Yeah.
I think wow, that was bad. No, that was nuts. Like I'm actually shocked. Jordan Poole, I'm going to get it out the way. He's a good player. He's a good player in this league. You're going to tell me he's having a top 24 season this season. I would tell you you are on crack, cocaine, heroin, whatever they're giving you right now needs to be sold worldwide because they'll make a fortune out of it. Jordan Poole, to me, isn't even an impact player. I don't know. I think Jordan Poole not only is one of the worst basketball IQ stars in the league, I think Jordan Poole not only like I don't even want to like start hating right now. I just like there's so many players in the West that you can put over Jordan Poole. Like I don't even think Jordan Poole would sniff my top like 20 players in the West. Like I genuinely like I don't know if this is a hard take. I think he's actually putting up empty stats. Like he's just going out there putting up numbers. Really doesn't matter. I think what Klay Thompson's doing in the stretch for the Warriors has been more impactful than Jordan Poole. I don't want to go on my list on like who I have, but like even like my honorable mentions have way better numbers than Jordan Poole. The only thing that Jordan Poole does to me is score, and I think he's not even one of the best scorers in the West. I know, like obviously when Steph Curry's not around, he's putting up numbers, but the Warriors are barely 500. I'm like bamboozled. Like I don't even know what to say. Like I gave you a second because I thought you were trolling, but you took it there. You said there's going to be a pool party in Utah, and that's a party that I don't want to attend because I don't think Jordan Poole deserves to be in Utah.
To kind of pick up on Rizzo's point, I'm not going to go as in on Jordan Poole. I definitely do see his value, especially for the Warriors. But with that being said, not that his stats are empty in my opinion, but they're definitely inflated this season because the Warriors are maybe 508th seed in the West. Definitely a bit of a fall off from their championship team last year. And while injuries do play a role, if you really think about it, Jordan Poole is the fourth option on that team. He's not even a starter. Wiggins has been out for how long? I don't remember the last time I saw Wiggins play a game this year. In addition to that, the way Clay's been playing, dropped 52 the other night, right? He's showing why he's still Klay Thompson. And Steph Curry. There doesn't have to be any more explanation after that. So for a fourth option to be an all-star reserve is kind of nuts to me.
I don't even think nuts is the right word, but you know, everyone has their own takes. Jordan Poole was a take. That was a take, Chris. I will commend you. I don't know what I can even say to go to my list. I will tell you, Jordan Poole is not on my list, but two guys that are on my list. I'm going to show some love to somebody that we already mentioned, and it's going to be Lauri Markkanen. I think Lauri Markkanen is having a great season. I think like JT was saying, if Shai Gilgeous didn't exist, I think Lauri Markkanen is the hands-on favorite to win the most improved player. He's averaging 24, 9, and 2. He's got 14 double-doubles this season. He has 9 30-plus point games. I mean, Lauri is putting up great stats, and he's making Utah relevant. I mean, like, Utah, like Jonathan said, was supposed to be in the Wemby sweepstakes, and he's making them relevant for a play-in spot, and he's doing it, like, efficiently. He's went from averaging 14 points in his career to averaging 25. Like, same thing with Shai, like, to increase your averages in the NBA in a season's like length is hard, but to do it by 10 points is insane. That's what Shai's done. And that's what Lauri's doing. And Lauri definitely deserves these flowers, and I want to give him these flowers. So I think we touched upon it. Lauri 100% deserves an all-star spot. Someone that we haven't mentioned yet, which I'm honestly kind of really shocked. Maybe you guys will touch up on him with your 2 spots remaining. But I got to give it to the man out there in LA, and that's PG-13. I think what PG's doing this season for the Clippers is great. I mean, I know the Clippers 1 through 13 have the best roster in basketball. I mean, like you go down their list. John Wall, Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, Luke Kennard, Marcus Morris, Ivica Zubac, like Nicholas Batum, Terrence Mann. Like They genuinely have a great squad, but they're nothing without Paul George. I know Kawhi Leonard's been back, but Paul George is putting up great numbers, to be honest. 24 points, 6 rebounds, 5 assists. He has a triple-double this season. He has 3 double-doubles. He just scored 45 against Indy 2 days ago. Like, Paul George is still that scorer. He can go out there, play great offense, and play great defense. He's still one of the best two-way defenders in this league, and there's not many of those left. Obviously, you got Kawhi, but he's always injured. You got Giannis, you got Jimmy Butler, and then you got Paul George. I think Paul George deserves the love, and the Clippers are playing really good. The Clippers are 21-18. Obviously, the record isn't great, but look at the West standings. They're all competitive. They're all within the same range, and the Clippers are the 5th seed right now. And with Kawhi coming back healthy, Paul George playing the way that he's playing, the Clippers have a shot at making a title run, and I firmly do believe that. But that doesn't start without PG, and PG's having a good season. And honestly, we've been listing a lot of guards and like a lot of 4s and 5s. We haven't listed any 3s yet, and I think Paul George is arguably a top 5 small forward, not only in the West, but arguably in the league. So I think that Paul George deserves his flowers.
I mean, to touch up on not bringing up as many 3s, I think because I think the major 3s aren't playing right now. You think of Andrew Wiggins, he's hurt. We're talking. Andrew Wiggins isn't a good 3 now. Is this what we're talking about?
I will down the hill. He was a starter because the fans voted him in. Andrew Wiggins is a good 3. Is he an all-star? Is he an all-star level 3? He is not. I don't think Wiggins is a top 5 small forward in this league. No.
Yeah, agreed with that. Definitely not.
He's maybe like 8, maybe.
All right. Kawhi Leonard, can we agree on Kawhi? He's on his load management, so we can't really bring up Kawhi.
For sure.
Okay. Besides that, yeah, I agree with your PG pick for sure. And Lowry was my guy for the starter, so I could agree with your picks.
Fair enough. JT?
Yeah. Love the Lowry pick, as we all do. PG was actually going to be one of my points I was going to talk about later, so I definitely did not forget about him. Just felt like the guys I mentioned before are more deserving, if that makes sense. But no, love your picks.
No, fair enough. And with that being said, JT, speak your final 2 picks of the West reserves.
Got you. So to start off my list, we literally just touched upon him. PG, Paul George. Clippers are currently 6th in the West. Pretty much PG's leading the charge without Kawhi for a little bit over half the season. And while they do have some great, definitely no-name role players, some of those role players are way past their prime. You know, you hear names like John Wall, Reggie Jackson. They were good at a point in the 2010s, yeah, but it's 2023, and I wouldn't necessarily put too much of how do I say this? Put too much of my eggs in their basket, if that makes sense. But I would for PG's basket, or I would put PG's eggs in my basket. But with that being said, my second selection has to actually go to someone that has not been mentioned yet, might be mentioned, but Domantas Sabonis. He's averaging 19, 13, and 7. He's pretty much baby Jokic. He's having a career high in both field goal percentage, and even though he doesn't shoot a lot of them, he does have a career high 3-point percentage as well. And pretty much the main reason as to why Domantas deserves to be an all-star is because if the season ended today, Sacramento would be in the playoffs for the first time since 2005, 2006. That would be ending nearly a 20-year drought. And the only real significant difference to that team has to be the fact that Domantas Sabonis now covers a front court presence they haven't had since Boogie Cousins. So, yeah.
No, fair enough. I agree with PG-13, and I'll give a spoiler. Sabonis is one of my final 2 picks too. I think what he's doing is world class. Chris?
I could agree with both picks, honestly. PG-13 is definitely one of my picks as well. And I just want to clarify my Wiggins statement real quick. I wasn't saying he was the top small forward. I was saying in the West. If you compare him if you put him in the West, he is of top 5 small forward. You can't tell me otherwise.
Maybe in the West, but it's not an all-star. Regardless,
I'm with the PG-13 pick. I have that as my own pick. And you're gonna get angry again, but I really don't care. I'm taking Devin Booker. I'm taking Devin Booker. I don't care what the haters say. Devin Booker's my guy. I honestly was stuck between him and Sabonis. I'll be honest. Just struggling. Actually, PG-13 and Sabonis. That's where I was struggling with, going back and forth. Sabonis has played more games than Paul George. That doesn't mean much, but in the grand scheme of things, Sabonis playing on a Kings team consistently, the amount of minutes, and like you said, a baby Jokic. I mean, the guy's putting up great numbers this year. But PG-13 is on the Clippers, elevating them, doing the best he can, without playing with his, Batman and Kawhi. And I think he's putting up great numbers. And Book, I'm a person who really holds Book in a high regard. And it just, to me, when he plays and he plays at a high level, the guy's a great player. He's truly an all-star caliber player. Nobody can take that away from him. I mean, the guy's numbers, he hasn't played the last few games, but the guy's numbers are ridiculous. When he turns it on, he turns it on. That 50-point game he had before he went back down was just, incredible. That just shows you, hey, I could do this, by the way, anytime I want. So I got PG-13 and Book as my last two choices.
I don't think they're bad choices. I think they're fine. I don't
Speak your truth, Rizzo. I know what you want to say.
I don't really mind them. I agree with PG. We mentioned in the first episode, I don't think Devin Booker is having a great season comparatively to what he's had before. Obviously, he's putting up the numbers in terms of 27 points, whatever, 5 assists, 4 rebounds. I look at that Phoenix Suns team, and they are struggling. Like, they are like borderline fraudulent. Like, just making it to the finals a couple seasons ago. And I see them on national television getting blown out 30 points every single game. Like, it's very frustrating. And a lot of it comes from Devin Booker. I know he's hurt right now, but Devin Booker to me is a superstar in this league. And he is one superstar I can confidently say is inconsistent. Like, and I said this in the first episode, and I will die on this hill. Every superstar in this league you can count on besides scoring. You can't do the same for Devin Booker. I don't think Devin Booker makes his team better unless he's putting the ball in the hole. I genuinely believe that. Sure, he can get assists, but his threat level and being a scorer is leading to those assists. It's not like he's like, I don't think Devin Booker, and like him being an all-star is not like far-fetched. Like, I don't think he does not deserve it. Like, I'm cool with that pick. He's not on my all-star pick. I actually didn't select him at all, and JT didn't either. And I don't think it's wrong to do that. I just think Devin Booker's stats are leading to are not leading to W's, and the Suns are like very fraudulent. And I have an issue with Devin Booker because every time I watch him, he puts up goose eggs. So,
yeah, to kind of pick up on Rizzo's point, to me, to be completely honest, I never really bought into Devin Booker's hype in general. I feel like once he made the playoffs one time, he made the finals one time, and ever since then, he's kind of been riding on bat for like the last 2 years, you could say. Just off the fact that they're currently the 8th seed after being number one last year, and then the previous year not only making it to the finals, but they were the 2nd seed. That year they made the finals, they were dangerous. While the Suns are the 8th seed, I just feel like the numbers that he's putting up, while they're great, are empty. And the reason for the Suns' collapse is because of Chris Paul's slow decline, not so much because of Devin Booker's impact, if that makes sense.
I mean, I just have a quick rebuttal to it. What about SGA then?
I think sorry.
go ahead.
I was just gonna say that throughout, like I've been mentioning the entire time, it does have to do with narrative too. SGA is in that position where he is younger than D-Book. At this point in time, you could definitely make the argument that he has more promise in the future than Devin Booker. More promise. I'm not saying he's going to be a better player, but
I agree with JT. There's more, like he's saying, like there's more potential for him.
Yeah.
You think SGA could be a better player than Devin Booker?
No, more potential for him to succeed. I'm not saying individually, no, but SGA has a better argument for winning a chip down the line, way down the line than Devin Booker does at this point in time. Just go off the fact that Devin Booker's never even touched the playoff fort without Chris Paul. And he only first touched the playoffs, 7 years into his career, maybe? That's a decent amount of time, dude.
And that's why I'm glad you brought that up, JT. It's to me, it proves that Devin Booker doesn't make his team that much better. Like, he's not like SGA to me, like Jonathan was saying, is he gonna retire better than Devin Booker as a player playing basketball? No. But SGA's capabilities with what he has around him, I think, has a better future than Devin Booker. I think Devin Booker's peak is right now. If he wants to win a chip, it's got to be like in this year or next year. After that, like his window is closed, in my opinion. Like, unless he like bandwagons like down later of his career, but this is his peak. And if he misses this window, I don't think he'll ever win a chip.
And of course, sorry,
go ahead, Chris. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say that I know the whole Shea Devin argument seems massive to say, at least now, but honestly, that argument could really change so fast. All it takes is OKC kind of blowing it up, as you mentioned earlier, or even them showing some signs of success within the next 3 years, and then I don't know, for the next 2 after that, kind of falling off from that one season of success. So it's very possible, that the Devin Booker Shea argument does go in favor of Devin Booker, but at this point in time, that's where it stands, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's fair. I think, like I said, I don't think Devin Booker is a terrible pick. He's not on my list. Same thing like Trae Young. You pick Trae Young, it's not a terrible pick. He's just not on my list. The final 2 spots for me, there's a reason why I saved these 2 guys together, because I think they coincide. Before I touch up on this, I was between Damian Lillard, who didn't make my list, and this person. I was going genuinely back and forth. But at the end of the day, I think Damian Lillard wasn't as healthy compared to this other person. And I think narrative is a big thing, like you were saying, JT, to these All-Star games. I'm going to go with someone that's never made an All-Star game going alongside Domantas Sabonis. And that's the duo of Domantas Sabonis and De'Aaron Fox. I think 100% when you look at them and look at what they're doing, I think JT touched upon it. Sacramento has the longest drought in sports right now of not making the playoffs. In sports, it's almost 20 years. De'Aaron Fox is not no slouch. You got Damian Lillard, obviously, putting up 27, 4 and 7. He only played 20-some odd games. Portland's not winning. Devin Booker, like I said, I just think the fraudulent Suns leading to his injury is just something that I can't take too much stock in. But I look at the Sacramento Kings. Before I go into Sabonis, I'm going to talk a little bit about De'Aaron Fox, averaging 24 points, 5 rebounds, 6 assists. De'Aaron Fox is having a great season. He's got 9 30-plus point games this season. And little do you guys know, he's one of the clutchest players this season based on fourth quarter stats. This man puts the ball in the hole. You call his number, he will go out there and get that go-ahead bucket. He just did it in Utah the other day. He's done it 3 times so far this season. De'Aaron Fox is finally getting the flowers that he deserves because guess what? The Sacramento Kings are winning basketball games. And that's because this duo is the reason for that happening. Yeah, they got a new coach and Mike Woodson. Now you got Kevin Huerter. You got Keegan Murray, who's honestly a pretty good rookie. You got a lot of pieces surrounding them, but these pieces would be nothing without Domantas Sabonis, who is Jokic light. The man is averaging insane stats, 19 points, 12 rebounds, 7 assists as a big man, 28 double-doubles. He has 3 triple-doubles. He has 3 20-20 games this season. That's a lot. Sabonis is somebody that needs respect, and I don't know what we're classifying him in terms of position. If he is a center, in my opinion, I think he is the 3rd best center in basketball right now. If we're going with a power forward, I think that changes a little bit. But Domantas Sabonis is having a great season. And going back to the De'Aaron Fox thing, I just think with the Kings being the 5th seed in the West, a pretty good division. And honestly, if they make a top 4 seed, like I think De'Aaron Fox can win Comeback Player of the Year. Was he ever hurt or anything? No, but I just think what he's doing for the Sacramento Kings, like you guys got to put it into perspective. Who watches Sacramento Kings basketball? Who talks about Sacramento Kings basketball? Who does anything related to Sacramento Kings basketball? They are literally like the joke of not only the NBA, like of sports. Like people say like they're probably the worst ran franchise in sports. And they are putting on a show. They're one of the fastest paced teams in the NBA. They're just putting up great stats. And that's because of not only Domantas Sabonis, but De'Aaron Fox. And I think narrative plays a little bit into it. Do I think De'Aaron Fox is a better player than Damian Lillard? No. But I think team leading to W. Because going back to my SGA starting point, when is De'Aaron Fox ever going to be in the All Star game? He'll ever have a better season than he's having right now. And that's leading to W's, which is why I made the little hot take, left out Damian Lillard, left out Devin Booker to give De'Aaron Fox his flowers. And that's my final two spots.
Let me tell you what the difference between your two picks here for the West and my two picks out in the East between Brunson and Randall. 1 seed. The Knicks are the 6 seed. Why don't the Knicks deserve 2 All-Stars, but the Kings do?
Because the East is just a way better conference. They're just way more stacked.
I will accept your answer for now.
I just like we said, we had 4 guys in the front court for the East that didn't even start.
So you're telling me currently right now in your eyes that 5th seed Kings is a better team than all those? Then I'll listen to you right freaking now. Mavericks, Pelicans, Grizzlies, and Nuggets, who have guards like Jamal Murray, John Morant, Desmond Bane, CJ McCollum, and yeah, that's pretty much it. He's having better season than those guys.
Besides John Morant? Yeah. I think he's having a better season than CJ McCollum. I think he's having a better season than Desmond Bane. He's garbage. Desmond Bane is not in this conversation. He's not garbage, but this season he's garbage. He's having a better season than Jamal Murray. Like, De'Aaron Fox, honestly, is putting up great numbers. Like I said, the clutch factor, turning this franchise around, like, dude, De'Aaron Fox is showtime. He's dunking on people. He's getting assists. He's clutch. He's putting the ball in the hole. Like, he is an all-around scorer now, something you couldn't say a couple years ago. And like I said, if there's a time for De'Aaron Fox to touch an all-star game, it's got to be this season.
I do see your point, but kind of similar to my Devin Booker argument, I was debating on putting De'Aaron in the game. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, he doesn't deserve it. Like, he does deserve it a little bit, but just the fact, similar to Devin Booker, he never made the playoffs before Sabonis got there. And then the guards above that do have a better narrative. And in addition to that, one thing that's gone very under the radar this past season is the fact that Kevin Huerter is averaging 16 points for them. And no one talks about it, but I'm pretty sure that's Kevin Huerter's career high in points per game. And if you've ever watched the Sacramento King game, which I know I might be the only one that watched it like one time, but
no, I actually watch him. Kevin Huerter's almost shooting 50% from the 3. Like, he's a big part of the reason why they're winning. But I think, and I didn't mean to cut you off, I just genuinely think that all comes from De'Aaron Fox and Domantas Sabonis being the great duo that they are.
Yeah, Sabonis I can agree with, but just the fact that De'Aaron's never made it without Sabonis, and he's been in the league a decent amount of time, was the reason I didn't have him on my list.
Pretty fair. Chris, any final thoughts on De'Aaron Fox before we wrap everything up?
I mean, I'm not truly mad at your pick of De'Aaron Fox, and who else did you pick? I'm sorry.
Domantas Sabonis.
Yeah, I'm honestly not mad at those picks. I just want to know a reasoning why it could have been Brunson and Randall on the other side. But I think those two guys are definitely deserving of an all-star spot. Fox is playing tremendously, especially for a Sacramento team, and so is Sabonis. That 1-2 punch it's been doing well.
Yeah, great. I'm going to give a little TDLR, and then we're going to go with our final thoughts. So, for the most part, I think this was pretty productive. We all had similar as well as different lists, noticeable ones that I can recall off the top of my head. Chris had Lauri Markkanen as a starter. I had SGA as a starter. Jonathan had Trae Young as a starter when Trae Young didn't make me or Chris's list at all. Jordan Poole got an all-star mention. De'Aaron Fox got an all-star mention from me. JT got Damian Lillard, who was the only mention from him. Booker was the only mention from Chris. So we definitely had a little varying, showing some love all around. But yeah, I think there's definitely some moments. Jonathan, you didn't mention Kyrie either. That's actually something that slipped my mind. Wow, that's insane that he wasn't even listed for you. Darius Garland was only listed by Chris. So a lot of opinions and a lot of things that led to interesting conversation. With that being said, we'll go with Chris as a reoccurring guest. Any final thoughts that you have?
No, I had a great time, but I died on my Jordan Poole, Devin Booker hills, and Brunson. Just saying. So I appreciate being on the podcast. You know, share my thoughts.
Yeah, JT, what about you, King?
Uh, Not much from my end. This was a great conversation. Love the time we spent here, and thank you for having me on your platform. Appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Guys, thank you so much for coming on. This was a great time, great laugh. Definitely something I'm going to remember for a while. To everybody that's still watching this, I appreciate the love and support, especially that the first episode got. It was great. If you're new here, check that out. RizPod, that's what we're on. All you got to do is like, subscribe, watch the video, support. Any support's appreciated. With that being said, it's your boy, the man, the myth, the legend, RizGod, ending the second episode of the RizPod. See you guys.